Welcome everyone, my name is Tiffany, I'm the Tipsy Artist, and today we are painting this super cute Highland cow. He's a little Santa Highland cow. So I'm going to have the color version for you to watch the entire time while we achieve this goal. So this is basically what we're going for. This is what I've designed and painted before, so I'm going to have a little color copy of it here showing for y'all. So I'm going to go ahead and place this down, and then we always have painting kits that come to y'all to make it very easy. So this gives you an idea of the little kit that you get in the mail. And then let's go ahead and start to talk about the traceable. So again, our classes are made for beginners, and all of our kits can be found at tipsyartist.com. So this is the traceable, and this is the canvas, and let's go ahead and talk about how to do this first. So we've got your traceable here, we've got your transfer paper that comes in your kit, and then of course your canvas that comes in the kit. And we just do a little bit of some taping up here at the top, and again, that also comes in the kit. So you've got some washi tape there, all your supplies. Alright, so our designs are made to where you can use them to sort of float right in the center of 11 by 14 or an 8 by 10 that does come in your kit there. So I've just taped it right here at the top. I leave all of the sides free and loose so that you can check your work as you go. But the first thing that I'll do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make sure that I tape the top part to the canvas right at the top. So that I make sure that the dull gray side faces towards you, faces up. Shiny black side faces the canvas. And then I'll tape this top part here too, basically just right in the center. I do have a little bit of overlap at the top. That's okay. It's definitely made to have a little bit of over design to where it just fills the entire space. So even if you have some that comes off, that's all right. So we're all set up here, all ready to go. We're going to go ahead and place this down. I'm going to switch camera views to where we can go ahead and give y'all a really nice look at everything we'll be working on today. So here we go. Okay, awesome. All right, so getting set up here, we've got your color image to look at the entire time. And let's talk about all of our little supplies here. So again, we've got, all this comes to you in the mail, so this is what your paints will look like. Really nice acrylic paints. And let me put this off to the side. I've got an open set here. I've got bottled water nearby. You can hear that thumping as I knock it over. Alright. Alright, and then this gives you a look at your supplies that come to you in the mail here. But I've got mine out. So we've got a little bit of a festive party blow out there for you. Your Sharpie, your pencil. This is what we use to do our trace. Got your paint plate. I've got a little bit of extra paint out here to begin with. But all of this comes to you in the mail except for your water. You will have to go ahead and get your water in some sort of bucket or container to hold your water here. Even just a coffee cup works just great. Alright, so let's go ahead and continue talking about the trace here. We use our pencil for this, so every time you see a line, you're just going to go ahead and do a pencil line over every single line that you see. So we've made that easy for you. And again, I left all this open so that you can constantly check your work here and see how you're doing. I'm going to go ahead and show you what that looks like. I've worked ahead so you can see that. So now that I'm done, I'm going to go ahead and lift this off. Now we also have the permanent marker there for you so that if you would like, you can actually do some of this with your permanent marker too to help reinforce some of those lines. Today I'm going to go ahead and just leave this as a light pencil line. Some of my designs are a little bit different in that it is nice to have the hard pencil line to go ahead and bleed through the paint. For today's, you could certainly do the trees with that. Those are going to continue to bleed through. But other than that, I kind of like this to just be more of a soft line to go ahead and paint around. So I'm going to go ahead and place these off to the side. We've got our little napkins and of course our little brushes. Let's talk about those. We have a little family of brushes that will help us paint today. I refer to them as Mama. She's the biggest brush. Then we have Little Buddy, and then we have Little Bit. All right. Okay, so in the very beginning here, we're going to go ahead and work in a little bit of our background. And I've got some paint that's already out here. I've been painting a lot today already, but let's talk about what those are. So to begin with, we've got kind of a cloudy, snowy sky. So I'll be using my, if I can get it out, here we go, our titanium white. So titanium white paint, and then we've also got our Mars black there. All right. Okay, so I do have that on my plate already. And I'm going to go ahead and start with the Mama brush to begin with. And I'm going to go ahead and start to mix up a little bit of this gray sky. So I'm going to just add a touch of this white, pick up a nice dollop of it, and then just super tiny amount of the black. We'll work that in. Super tiny because we want a very, very light gray. So we're going to mix those two together. And then we'll start to kind of cross-hatch this into my sky real light. And you can even add a little bit of water to this too to make it a little bit more transparent. And see, my pencil line that I have from the trace actually bleeds through there, so I still maintain that trace that's showing through. Again, a little bit of water, that titanium white, and a teeny amount of that black. And I'm just doing little cross strokes just back and forth, and it kind of feels like you make tiny little X's over and over again. Again, really light and even a little bit translucent, so I'm adding a little bit of water to it. Again, so that your trace does kind of show through. And I can do just a teeny amount of this overpaint here to where that'll go into the background. Again, let's grab a little bit more white, teeny amount of the black. We're going to make some more of that light gray. And let's add a little bit of water to it. And we're just getting a nice light gray wash into the background. Again, adding enough water to this to where it is nice and translucent. And we'll just continue this all the way around the shape of the Highland cow and that Santa hat. Again, all we're doing is just making sure that that light gray sky shows through here in the background. Again, this is our titanium white, tiny amount of the Mars black, and a little bit of water too, just to make it very translucent so that we can just have a nice light wash of it in our sky. And you can see how everything is definitely bleeding through there, all of our trace work, so we're not covering that up. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and rinse out. So as I rinse, I'm going to go ahead and do some firm pressure and push the brush in a nice circular motion that will help release the paint. And then we're going to test for it to be clear. It's nice and clear. We're going to go ahead and dry off here. And it is really important to make sure that you do wash your brushes very quickly. This is acrylic paint. It will set up and dry very quickly on your brush. So if you can't get to it for a minute, make sure you even just leave it in the water. Don't just leave it out with the paint setting on it, or else it will ruin your brush. All right. So now we've got some of that beautiful gray sky already worked into the background. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to start to work on the base here of our sweet little face. And I'm going to go ahead and let's see what colors I want. All right, so we want to make sure that we've got some brown to start with as a base. So I'm going to go ahead and take some Cadmium Orange. Let's do a nice dime-sized dollop there of that. So again, Cadmium Orange. And then we've got our Mars Black here. So actually mixing those two up will give us a brown. So I'm going to do a little touch of the black in with the Cadmium Orange, and see, that's making a really nice brown to start with. And there's a lot of rust in here too, so even if it has a little bit of that quality in it, that's quite all right, because we're going to have a lot of that into the mix here. Darken this brown up just a little bit more. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start to work this into my Highland cow here, following that line work that we've done. And you can add a little bit of water to this to also create a nice little wash that comes in over the surface here. We're just doing that first layer. Eventually we'll have a lot of highlights in that color. But for right now, we're just getting a nice foundation. So again, this is our Cadmium Orange, little touch of our black. We'll take a nice little curve here around the side. Let's add a little more touch of the water to this. So working this into the large body part of the design. And the brush strokes, you're just going to hold the brush a little bit like you'd hold a pencil. That'll give you lots of nice control. Just kind of act like you're almost like brushing through the hair. Follow the strokes that you've got in your initial trace there. A little bit more black here. Make sure we get those little hooves. Made those more of that black. I'm going to rinse out because I don't want that much black in the rest of it. Going back into that Cadmium Orange mix with that little amount of Mars Black. And then work this around the face. And I've got this cute little eye that's going to be peeking through, so I want to make sure that that stays uncovered because it has a lot of personality. So again, we'll keep that out in the open. And also the nose too, we want to make sure that that stays unpainted for right now. And we're just getting that nice base of color over the top. Alright, so this gives us a really nice foundation there. And remember, we have a lot more layering that we're going to be doing over the top. So it still looks a little bit, well, obviously very raw and unfinished at this point. That's okay. Alright, now I'm going to go ahead and rinse this out. Dry off. And I will say that if you're concerned about having a sense of control with the brush, you can always use your Sharpie to kind of darken the eye a little bit. But definitely make sure that the paint is all completely dry. When paint hits, when a permanent marker hits wet paint, it will just kill it immediately and render it useless. So you always want to make sure and always use this just on dry paint. Alright, now I'm going to come back in with my little bit brush, add a little tiny amount of water to this, and come back into that Mars Black. I'm going to do a little twist here into the paint. So that'll rotate the head of this brush into a very fine point. You can see how very, very tiny that is. That's actually much tinier than the Sharpie can ever get. So I'm going to go ahead and do this line work around the eye, so it's a tiny little circle. And this will feel like making a little parentheses. Again, I'll do a little twist here into the paint. So again, it's like a half circle, like a parentheses. And then on this one, we'll just go ahead and you can fill it all in. I'm going to teach you a little technique to make that flash point of white over the top, or you can just very carefully try to leave that in place too. Alright, so that's our cute little eye here, and then I'm going to take the same little bit brush and the black paint, and I'm going to go around this little nose here. Reinforce that with some more of that black paint. And then we'll also have a little bit of some blackness in here too. Those are the little nostrils, so we want to make sure and keep those darkened in here. And adding a little bit of water to the paint makes it a bit more fluid. So easier to flow into that space there. And then once I've got that, then I can just kind of make little curls of hair coming out from that shape. So again, the shape of it kind of feels like a tiny little parentheses. So I'll do that going up too. And out to the side. Alright, so we're starting to get some definition happening here. And then I'm going to start to add a little bit more black into the design here. So when I come down from this hat, start to make like little strands of this black hair that will come down from the Santa hat. And I give a little bit of a wave here too. And again, there will be lots of little highlights here. This is just the first of many layers that will come in. So again, you want to make sure you avoid the eye, because again, it peeks through. So a little wave. Little curls that come in. And just kind of keep acting like you're brushing through the hair here. And it certainly doesn't have to be exactly the same as mine. You know, it changes every single time I paint this. And the shape again kind of feels like a little parentheses, and then sometimes you just kind of come off with a little wave. You can even add a little curl to your hair too. Give it some personality. We'll just continue taking this all the way down. And continue to add a little bit of water to it just to kind of help make the black a little bit more fluid. Helps it go into the porous quality of the canvas. So this is a very fun, therapeutic part of the painting process. Very relaxing. Come back in with a bit more of that orange and the brown right over the tip-top part of the foot there. All right. So let's go ahead and rinse out now. That's looking really good. Now let's go ahead and work in some lighter highlights here. Okay, so we've got a little bit more of this rest that we want to work in, and then also I'm going to add a little bit of red in that as well. So let's add some Cadmium Red, a little dime-sized dollop of that. And let's go ahead and get some more Cadmium Orange just in case. And then just a little hint of this Cadmium Yellow here too. And I've got my white that I'll continue to use, our titanium white. And there's also just little hints of some primary cyan blue in here too. It creates a nice little dark tone that happens in there. Alright, so I'm going to make more of a reddish rust. I'm going to add the Cadmium Red to the Cadmium Orange, and a teeny tiny amount of black in there. I'll kind of turn it more to a rust. Now I'm loading up my brush. I'm going to go ahead and twist it into a nice fine point. And we're just going to create another layer of this right over the top. Just kind of randomly placed throughout his body or her body. Actually, I think based on the horns, I think this is more of a girl. Alright, so we're just going to continue to make like little pieces of hair. Again, this is my Cadmium Red, my Cadmium Orange, tiny little touch of that black. And it might even touch into some of that black you just painted, and that's okay, but you can see how it's really creating some really pretty layers now. Really nice highlights. You can even be a little bit more dramatic with it and go into some more of the pure red too. Alright, so it's looking really good. Now I'm going to go in with a little bit more of this white and the Cadmium Yellow. And get some really light highlights in there. A little bit of a wave. See how that's really making a big difference there. So again, our titanium white, a little bit of that cadmium yellow. And if you ever get too much of like a light or a dark, you can always come back in with a little bit more of the opposite, you know, and just kind of work that back in over the top just to, you know, kind of soften it a little bit. See, because I felt like that was a little too light, so, you know, I can always come back in and rework in some of this black. And then I'm liking that cadmium yellow, so I'm going to go ahead and work in more of those highlights. It's really pretty and bright. Continue working that over the body here. Rinse out a little bit, and let's come in with a little bit more of that really pretty primary cyan blue. We'll be pretty minimal with this, but it just kind of adds a fun little touch of color. Make it a little bit interesting. It's definitely a dark undertone, but not completely natural, as you know, but it is just a fun way to be a bit more expressive with the color. We don't always have to be so literal Alright, so that is looking really beautiful. I'm going to go ahead and rinse out. We're going to work on the tones of that cute little nose there. So let's go ahead and rinse out a little bit. And I want kind of a pinky tone on that. So I've got my Cadmium Red here, a little bit of my Titanium White. Let's add a lot of Titanium White. We're going to warm that up. And then you know what? Let's go ahead and grab some primary Magenta. I'm going to work that in there too. That'll bring in quite a bit more of that pink tone. Add more white, lighten it up quite a bit. Now let's really twist that back out to where we have a nice fine point. I don't want that too big. And then we're going to work that into the top here. Cute little nose out in front. Alright, now we have just a wee bit of little shading to do over the top. So I'm going to go back in with my orange and a little bit of that black to almost give me a nice little brown. Hook some of that in the very center here while the paint's still wet. And softly place that in the very middle section of the entire shape, leaving just a pink perimeter around the edge, but just filling in the rest with a light brown. Let's rinse out. And then let's just grab, actually make sure I don't have excess water there. Let's grab a little touch of the white and then a little tiny little highlight of white here. Tiny highlight of white there. And then one here at the base. Alright, and let's rinse out. Alright, that's looking really pretty. Alright, let's go ahead and start to work on our little horns here. So we're just going to start with a nice soft gray. We're going to add a little bit of white here with our black. And just for fun, let's do some of that primary cyan blue. Let's pick up a little bit of that in there too, kind of give it a nice slate quality. And I'm still using my little bit brush here. And we're going to go ahead and paint into the entire shape. And we'll bring in a white highlight, but we'll do it when the paint's still wet, when we're done doing the darkest shade first here. Do some firm pressure to place that in there. And then let's rinse out, dry off, and let's grab some more white and start from this side and just kind of pull it all the way across. So it just kind of gives it a nice little highlight right over the top. So a nice little soft fade between the white and that darker shade of gray. And you can even add a more exaggerated little bit of white here too, more like a highlight. Okay. And kind of softly work back into that while the paint's still wet. Get a nice transition between the two. Alright, now let's do the other side. A little bit of black, a little bit of primary cyan blue, a little bit of white, and we're just going to work into the darkest part of that horn first. So using our little bit brush so that we can have really good control in this small shape here. Twist the point, make sure it's nice and fine. You can do that detail work. Okay, it's lovely. Let me go ahead and rinse out here. Let's grab some pure white. I had a little bit of excess water kind of run down the brush. Make sure to get that off. I'm going to go ahead and push that pure white into the top here. Let's wipe off that excess. Drag the edge of the brush just right over the top to do a nice soft fade between the two. It's looking really pretty. Let's go ahead and rinse out. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and do some pure white and come back in with a little bit brush and just pure white, you know what, just a teeny tiny touch of black with like a really light gray. It's even too dark. Add more white. Let's do our little ball here, a little white ball on the hat, and paint into that. Again, let quite a bit of paint just rest on the surface. Make sure it's nice and textural, very pretty. And then let's go ahead and work that into this section here too. Again, this is mostly titanium white with just a teeny tiny little touch of the Mars black. And we'll take this all the way across. This to be the end of the hat, so I picked up a little bit more of the black. Just kind of define that edge, and I'm going to work more of the white right back into it. Alright, very pretty. Let's go ahead and rinse out. Alright, let's grab some lighter green. Let's see, we're going to be using some Cadmium Green. Little pea size amount there of that. And then a little bit, we're going to add some white to that Cadmium Green, titanium white, Cadmium Green. Let's work those two together. So really tiny shapes. We're going to do a little twist of our brush into the paint there. And we're going to work that into those little holly leaves. You can also add a little bit of water to this so that the paint is more fluid and easier to move into those little tiny spaces. And then just work in that solid color into that shape. Okay, remember to do a little twist with your brush to get that nice fine point in those outer edges of the holly leaf. Those are looking gorgeous. Let's go ahead and rinse out. Alright, since we've done our sky behind here, I'm going to go ahead, it's safe to go ahead and do the red parts now. Sometimes you need to be careful of that, because if you still have excess wet paint nearby, your reds can make things pink. So I'm going to be a little bit careful of that. Now I've got a cool red that I'm going for, so I'm going to be mixing this primary magenta with my cadmium red, about equal parts on that. And that'll give me a nice cool red. Because cadmium red's very warm on its own, so I add the primary magenta to cool it off a little bit. And then I'm going to just give some firm pressure, kind of spin the brush into a circle, making my little holly berries here. Those are cute. Alright. Again, about equal parts cadmium red, primary magenta, and then we're going to go ahead and work into this cute little Santa hat. Just continue working into the hat here. We use a little bit quite often in this painting today. Now we've got a little crease here, so I'm going to come in with a little bit of some lighter pink right next to that crease to give it a little bit more of some emphasis. We had that earlier from the nose, so I'm just using that in here now. And let's just kind of softly blend that in. And then we'll go back to the darker shade of just the primary magenta and the cadmium red, and we'll just work that in here. And go into those little tiny curls of the shape of the holly leaves. And then as I work into the fullness of the hat, I'm going to go ahead and just kind of crisscross it out. So again, it kind of makes it feel like you're making little tiny little X's with your brush. That's just feathering out that brush stroke, giving it a nice texture over the top. Also a nice light gentle hand that allows you to leave a lot more of that paint actually on the surface area without scraping it off, within any extra pressure there. And I'm going to go into that primary magenta one more time since it's quite a bit darker, and we're going to go over that little crease right there just to re-emphasize it just a little bit. Alright, that is beautiful. Alright, so let's see, now we're going to go ahead and work in, let's do presents next, that'll be fun. And of course you can be creative with your presents and do different colors here. But I'm going to make this really pretty light green again. And let's go ahead and add a bright yellow green. You know what else is kind of fun is some Viridian. So I've got little Buddy now. Got my Viridian and my bright yellow green. We're going to mix those two together. Do the large sections of this little present. And try to hold that brush more over to the side so the paint just kind of gently rests on the surface area. And I'm going to make the bottom part of the present just a little bit lighter, so I'm adding more of that bright yellow green. So we see that top coming in, that top line of the present. Alright, really nice. Let's go ahead and rinse out. And if there's really tiny areas you couldn't get into before, like right in there, I'm going to take a little bit again. Alright, that looks lovely. Alright, now let's go ahead and work in a soft red over the top here of the other present. So I'm going to use my Cadmium Red. We had that out earlier. Let's give a visual on that. So Cadmium Red. And I'll have to come back in with my little bit brush again. A lot of small details here, so I'm going to firm up that edge. A little bit more water to make the paint more fluid. Do a little twist. That's very nice. I'm going to make it a little bit lighter now. Add some more orange to it, just to change it up a little bit and work that into the base here. And I'm getting really close to that wet green, so I'm going to back off from using Little Buddy here. Come back in with my little bit brush here. Finish that out. Alright, that's really nice. Let's go ahead and rinse out again. And we need some more of that beautiful cadmium yellow. This is what we're going to use for our bows, our wrapping. So another little pea size amount there. Again, using a little bit and cadmium yellow, we're going to come in and do our tiny little bows here. Just look like little tiny loops. Put that all the way down. See, it's making that really pop. And my sweet puppy dog Ira is here in the background. Actually, I have a full house here today. Normally I'm here by myself, but today we've got Life Church here doing a songwriters annual retreat. They come here every year for that, so it fills our space with beautiful music. It's really nice. All right, lovely. Go ahead and rinse out now. Okay, so let's go ahead and start to work in some of our beautiful trees. Give Mama a little bit of work now. She's been kind of resting here. So let's see, we'll mix up a little bit more of our brown. We'll mix that with the black. So let's do some black and orange for our brown. And then we'll also do a little bit of white with that too. So yeah, that's going to make a light brown. Alright, so I'm going to start with that light brown first. Holding Mama now with the fine edge. So as I press into the paint, let's just talk about that a little bit. So as I press into the paint, I want to make sure that it's nice and thin. And then I'll hold the brush just like I'd hold a pencil, so that gives me a nice thin line edge. So I'm working in that light brown here. And if it's a little bit spotty, of course you can add a teeny amount of water to that. Kind of always press that back into it so you have a nice control on how much water you have in the paint, because you don't want to just hit the canvas right after you've gone into the water. Sometimes you'll end up with a big like drop of water that can disturb your paint a little bit more than necessary. So always kind of hit it first here on the plate so you have a good handle on how much water's in your brush. Now I'm going to be hitting more of that darker brown on this side. Darker brown there, which connects. And a little bit more of this black. Let's grab more orange. I'll probably have to do more orange. A nice big section here. So all that orange will mix with the black to give us more brown. Working into that trunk. And I want to make this a little bit darker on this side, so I'll push in a little bit more of that black on this side. I have a very friendly fly. Yeah, that's a nice word for it, isn't it? Friendly fly. Alright, so I'm going to go up, make a little branch. Take this all the way up to the top. That back into our trunk here. And you can see how some of it's a little bit spotty with that white, so of course you can always add a little bit more water. And that will help it flow into the canvas. Make some tiny little twigs that will come off of the main section here. Do some more firm pressure here to get our brush back out to a thin state. I kind of went over my horn a little bit, so I need to fix that. Feather that back out with my white. Grab a little bit of water. Softly blend that out. Alright, now let's work this in on the other side. Oh wait, no, I'm going to do a little bit more here. A little bit more of that darkness on this side. Again, firm pressure, get nice thin lines here. Let's get a little trunk going here, a little skinny. And then again here. And I can go ahead and go over the Christmas tree just a little bit. And then, because I'm going to take, we'll finish out with the Christmas tree and then I'll come back over the top and make that look a bit more natural. Meaning to X out of my mail. Okay. Because it kind of makes a loud little ding every time somebody sends me an email. Alright, so I can end that trunk right about there. And then I'll continue on up. Firm pressure. I'm going to finish this one out. Bit of water again really helps. Alright, so we have some beautiful branches happening there in the background. And now it's time to work in our Christmas tree. Let's go ahead and switch over to Little Buddy. Just make sure he's really clean. Let's give this a little spin. Now we have our greens. So, and I'm liking, we've got all of our greens out. So let's do a little rundown on this again. Viridian would be our darkest, but it also has more of a teal quality to it. Cadmium Green, it's kind of like an emerald green in my opinion. And then we have our bright yellow greens. So we've got all of our greens out. I'm going to go ahead and push into my darkest Viridian green to start with. A little touch of that cadmium. And then I'm going to follow our line work here that we made. And just brush this out. So we'll start from this side here and then just brush towards the center. Lift off with a light hand when we get out towards the end. And you can even add a little bit of black to this too, I would think, in the very beginning. See, that gives a nice little shadow, especially when you're having to cover up over that little bit of the trunk here. You don't want to have that be transparent in there to where you see that coming through. So I'm going to add a little bit of some thickness here with that shadow of black. And then we'll come back over that again. See that pop of bright yellow green is pretty powerful too. It's creating a nice look over the top. Scoop this dry just a little bit there. This is my little buddy brush again too. This is the medium-sized brush that we have with our kit. 1/4 inch tack line flat brush. Alright, that's looking really great. And you can even add a little touch of white, I would think, with that too for some highlights. See, that's fun. Oh, very pretty. Is really pretty. We're going to work in a little bit of our snow and our different shades of gray here at the base. Let's make sure and dry this off. Alright, so I'm going to do a teeny touch of, we've got our primary cyan blue that's still out with our white, which makes a really pretty kind of like a slate. So a little more black to that. I need a lot more white to lighten that up. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and work this into this section here. Now keep in mind that if you have a little bit of overpaint that happens, we can come back in and retouch up a few little pieces of the cow hair that will come back out in front again because we want that to look natural. Alright, so I'm just kind of crisscrossing these back and forth, little tiny little X's. Grab some more white as we go. And as much as I can, I'm going to do what I can with the little buddy brush, but you can see how it's getting to be a little bit too big to get into the little spaces that I need. So I'm going to rinse out here. Let's go back to a little bit. Let's create that little line there, add a little bit of water, a hill there. Let's grab a little bit more white. We'll work this underneath our trunk, but then also in our little ribbon here. So we have to use a really delicate hand. And then as we work back out into the snow, I'm going to just feather out those brush strokes and kind of crisscross it back and forth to create some nice texture in here. And then add a little bit more of the white. We'll work back into this section. But it's not a pure white. It's got little tiny touches again of that gray, or in this case, We even added in a little bit of that slate color to it too. All right, and then where we have this like line, I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit more black to that so we can cover over that little trace line. And then that's going to make like a dark charcoal gray. And then I'm going to work back in and kind of blend it back in with just more of our pure white. Alright, so we've got those lines done. Now I rinsed out with my little bit brush. And I'm going to grab a little bit more of this. It's the titanium white that we're using here. I'm going to softly overlap that to get a soft blend between the two. And then I'm going to go back over this green again too to get some natural green coming out in front. Working a little bit of an overpaint of white over that charcoal gray. I've dipped into my white so much it's becoming a little challenging to get some pure white. I may have to do some fresh, a little fresh amount here. And it's a little bit easier. Softly work that in. Alright, let's rinse out here. Alright, let's come back in with our little buddy and our green. And just do a little bit of an overpaint over the top here so that it looks more natural. Coming in over the top of that white that we painted in. And some firm pressure, getting some nice texture in there too. You can be a little bit heavier handed here with it. Leave chunkier amounts of paint on top. Okay. And then let's come back in with our little bit brush here and let's do some more brown. So we've got our orange and our black, which makes that dark brown. Let's kind of spin in there a little bit and then let's feather out some of those little hairs there too. So this is also a little bit more natural coming out again over the top of the snow. Because we had to do a little bit of painting into that, and so we don't want that to look unnatural to where it looks like we painted over the hair there. So again, a little bit of that hair coming out again over the top. It's looking so good, y'all. Y'all are doing a great job. I can feel it. So let's see here. So it's really beautiful as it is with this simple look, but you can also do even more details. We'll talk a little bit about that. So we've got some polka dots we can do. Let me show you a fun little trick. So you can take the end of your handle here, and I'm going to need more paint. So let's grab some Cadmium Red, little pea size amount. All right, let's take a little bit and the handle, so not the brush side, but the handle, we're going to dip right into that paint, and we're just going to dot it out here, just little firm pressure straight down, and this makes fun little polka dots. And of course, if you want your polka dots to be bigger, you can use a bigger brush handle, like the Mama has a much bigger, ending here, so you can make bigger dots that way as a pattern. This is a super fun and easy way to decorate our little packages here. Love it. Alright, so we've got our little polka dots now. And of course you can do your little stripes too with your Cadmium Yellow. Now we're using the brush side and just doing a little brush stroke down here. Just kind of keep it simple. And then rinse out. And then if you want little snow flurries in your sky, you can add some of those too. Also real quick, I'm going to do like little bits of snow that rest on the branches. So I'm going to take a little bit, I'm going to push it down into the paint, and then I'm just going to basically just kind of lay it right there on the edge of that branch. Make sure you go at an angle. Really thick amounts of that too for a fun kind of textural look there. Alright, and then let's talk about how to do a real fun little snow flurry look in the background too. So I am going to get a little bit more white, because I want my pure white, and this is really got a lot of color in there, so I'm going to do a little more of that pure white here. And then let's grab little buddy. I want to rinse out really well here. Okay, now let's grab, now that he's clean, let's grab a full amount, kind of get that belly of the brush full of water, and then push down into that white paint. Okay, and then I want to be a little bit careful of the body here, but out to the sides, I'm just going to flick it here, and then make little bits of snow, little snow flowers. See how pretty that is? So again, a little touch of water and then into the white paint. And then we're going to come back out to this side. I'm going to turn the brush to an angle. Just kind of barely flick it there. Just kind of make like little snow flurries in the sky. I'm going to come up top here and do a few more. All right. That's so cute, and you can just go nuts with more of that if you want, but that's just a really fun look. Let's do a few more up here. A little bit more water. down on that side. A little bit more at this top too. Alright, very, very fun. I'm noticing one little thing I missed. Every once in a while you take a look back and you go, okay, did I get everything? And I've got a little piece of the hat missing here, so I'm going to take my little bit brush and we're going to get that little piece of red hat done in there. You may notice something else, but I think I'm good. I can also do a little bit more detail on the holly leaves. Let's take our little Viridian, tiny amount there. A little bit brush, make sure it's nice and clean. And then we're going to make one little line right through the center. Just adds a fun little detail there on our holly leaves. Just doing a little bit of a once over here. Making sure I've got every little thing I want done. Doing little baby hairs here. Okay. Well, this is so cute. It's looking good. You know, one more thing I'm going to do. As I keep looking up at the monitor, I'm like, oh, I noticed something. I'm going to do a little bit of a shading here with a dark charcoal. Spin that out. And I'm going to outline this little snowball. It's not a snowball. It's actually the end of the Santa hat, but it looked a little undefined, so I went ahead and darkened that up a little bit. Alright, yeah, I'm happy with that. Okay. Alright, and then when you are done, of course, you can sign your masterpiece. And you can do that with either your little bit brush or wait until your paint is completely dry and you can sign it with your permanent marker as well. I think we are done for today with our project. Y'all did a great job, and of course everything that you need to do this with me is the class will remain up, and then all the supplies are on our website at tipsyartist.com. So we look forward to painting with y'all, and y'all have a wonderful and blessed day. Love y'all. Toodles.